thing through. One pain management doctor voted against it. How would you vote against something that works so well? So it was 2 full years after all this success with Charlotte had happened that these guys were finally boxed in, and John Morgan is exactly right. These guys got boxed in and they had to do something. But those medical marijuana bills sat in the House and the Senate for 3 full years. They were introduced, the committee chairman pigeonholed them in there. It's the same in both parties. It's the big money that comes in, the party dictates to the candidate how they're going to, or in this case, the representatives that we have, how they're going to vote.
Listen, I don't mind opening it up to the floor for a couple more minutes, but I need a question. Okay, I appreciate what Mr. Falk has to say, some of his background, but I'd like people to ask questions. Yes, sir.
Once the citizens of the state of Florida pass this as a constitutional amendment, and if they do, can Tallahassee still turn it down and say no?
No, they cannot, because the power of the Constitution, and Jimmie T does not want the Constitution to have the power that it has, but the power of the Constitution is vested in the people. And the people have the power, and the people are going to do the job that Tallahassee didn't do. They're going to get to enact it, they're going to get to regulate it, but there will be medical marijuana if we pass yes on 2.
And the truth is,
my question would be, now, if it's a constitution...
Wait, let me also address the gentleman too, if I can. The problem is the constitutionality of it. Once again, to make a change, if we come to find out that we have increased deaths or increased incidents of traffic and people taking medical marijuana, if we have a problem, guess what? It's in the Constitution. We can't even take the pregnant pig portion out of the Constitution. Once you put it in there, we don't have any ability to fix that issue. And truthfully, the only one who's going to benefit will people who then can take it to court, because they can't come to the legislature to fix it. Like the gentleman that came to me,
let me give
the
Jimmie
gentleman that came to me and wanted to address medical marijuana, I took to Tallahassee. If this passes and this becomes constitutional, your right to come to me to fix that, gone.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. But listen, one thing that I may help Jimmie with, because the way he's talking about, we think it's going to be apocalypse now. This is already, medical marijuana is the law in 23 states in this country, okay? And 1 district. And nothing, the world hasn't ended. Traffic deaths haven't increased. Crime has gone down in those states. And it hasn't ended. All you'll ever hear about is California, Colorado by scaregivers. I would like Jimmie to tell us 4 other states where there's medical marijuana.
I don't represent 4 other states. I represent Florida.
But if you're going to do your research, you have to know what's going on in the other states.
Okay, then John.
We're going to move on from that. Okay, we're going to move on from that.
My question is cost. Now, if it comes through as a constitutional amendment on Amendment 2, will the cost of the product be less than if it spends several years in the government in Tallahassee going through and it's dispensed by the drug companies where there is no generic?
Of course it will. Let me just tell you something. If the pharmaceutical companies get their hands on a product, you're going to pay an outrageous amount. The other night on 60 Minutes, there's pills out there for hepatitis C that cost $60,000 a pill. There's copay for cancer drugs that keep you alive only for 41 extra days that are like $7,000 a month for the pills. If you want to find one reason to vote yes on 2, vote no on Big Pharma, because these crooks These crooks, it's $1 billion criminal enterprise. Other countries negotiate the rates. You know what? People have to go to Canada to get their pills because they're too expensive here. So this will not, God help us if this ever gets in the hands of the pharmaceutical companies, because this plant was put into nature for us by God, and we don't need Big Pharma messing it up.
Once again, and this is so sad that you missed the entire point of being for medical marijuana. True marijuana in the form of medicine. But here's the thing. Those mom and pop businesses that are currently out there that are going to potentially sell this will start competing with each other. And then they're going to come up with better and better formulas. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start having the Philip Morris of marijuana. You're going to start having Lucky Strikes of marijuana. And until this
Scaregivers. Always when you hear that, just think of the word scaregivers. They're not going to sell this. We're not talking about the legalization of marijuana, Jimmy.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not. I don't think you read the amendment. This is medical marijuana. We're not going to sell it in cigarette forms like Lucky Strikes. When he says something like that, when he says the next thing we know, we're going to be selling it in, in
John,
cigarette forms.
they're already selling it in candy
That's
form.
what you said.
They're selling it like gummy bears. They're selling it like little candies. And hell, you're talking about putting in brownies.
Absolutely. That's how my brother takes it in brownie. That's how that man over there takes it in brownies.
And
Listen,
what's the proper dosage?
when you're dying,
What's the
when
proper
you're
dosage?
dying, it doesn't matter how you get
What
it.
is the proper dosage?
The proper dosage is until it works.
Unless, and how do you know?
But don't worry about this, because nobody's ever died from marijuana. Not one person in the history of the world, not one person in the history of the world has ever died from marijuana. But and you better tell me, Jimmy, because I'm into suing the pharmaceutical business, you better tell me what pills you're taking before we leave here tonight, because I may be able to save you from a bad pill.
This is the last question from the audience, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Jimmy, I have a question for you. If there were guidelines that were set up for each category or disease or whatever condition that a patient was in that allowed this patient to be given marijuana at a certain level or certain degrees of the marijuana or the THC that's in the marijuana, would you support the use of marijuana as a medical treatment to those patients?
I've been saying that the whole evening. I don't understand why people are not getting that. It's the constitutionality. It's guaranteeing something in the Florida Constitution, which should be so secure and so protected that we don't put something like this in. There is no other one drug that's being recommended.
Well,
why are we not recommending in the Constitution guaranteed drugs for many other aspects as well? I absolutely would support medical marijuana in the proper format through legislation and not through the Constitution. This debate isn't about medical marijuana. John, I guarantee you, if you come to me with legislation that says this is the right answer for my brother, I'll stand before the committee and support it. But if you're going to put in a Constitution, I'm going to oppose it.
I got a problem, and not with you, Jimmy, because you're not in leadership, and if you're not in leadership, you got no power. I do not trust Tallahassee. I do not trust Washington, D.C.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to give you each a brief 1-minute closing statement with regards to this. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Would you like to go first?
Are we going to do a 3-minute closing or 1-minute closing?
Yeah,
What was
just
it?
a 1-minute closing.
Okay, I'd like to stand up.
You need a little, yeah, you can come up to the podium.
Listen, first and foremost, I want to thank John for having a very heated debate because, truthfully, I respect you more for doing that. I don't like people who are mean, and I respect you for having the ability to stand up and truly have that passion for the issue. And John, I have compassion for your brother. I absolutely do. This isn't about medical marijuana. I'm on the record. I'm one of the few legislators who stood up to leadership in Tallahassee and built enough support to get leadership to have to accept this. It can be done. It was done. And if we need to make changes to medical marijuana to make it better so our constituents can have that, I'm already on the record. The only issue I have with this is that the constitutional amendment is so broadly written, and it's in the wrong spot. The Florida Constitution? What next? The U.S. Constitution? Yeah. And I'm not scaremongering. I'm telling you, I'm protecting the things that protect you. The Florida Constitution should not be amended to the point of willy-nilly going from point A to point B. Pregnant pigs, a specific drug. Legislation is there for that. How do we fix in the future things like that? It has to be done the right way. And John, once again, anytime, and I'm putting this out to you, man to man, anytime you want to come and sit down with me and help me build a better argument to expand the proper use of marijuana, I'm there with you. John, and God bless you, and it's Percocets. And I took 2 last year. 2. That's it, John. And God bless you for focusing on my pain. But you know what? The truth is, what is this about? This is about voting on something that, flawed as it is, will permanently be in the Constitution. Your children and grandchildren will have access in a way that they should not for marijuana. And you won't be able to do anything about it if you're wrong.
Jimmie, before you step down, were the Percocets prescribed?
Yes.
By who?
John?
By who?
John, you're on your closing, John. Here, I'll help
By
you.
who? Who prescribed your Percocet?
John, we're not on trial.
Who prescribed your Percocet? If you're taking Percocet without a prescription, that's a crime.
John, I'm a United States Army paratrooper. And through that, if you're not smart enough to figure out the VA system, prescribe those for me, then I have a problem. The VA has properly... Once again, John, I'm not on trial. And that's not what this is about. Hold on. Each and every time you stood up here, John, and asked me questions, I've not harangued you about your personal issues. I've not gone into things that you've done personally. But yet, to get his point across, he stood up, has made personal attacks, and asked me questions that have nothing to do with the issue. Once again, I've been honest. I am here to stand up and support something. John, I even reached out and offered to help you, and the very first thing you did was attack. And that, sir, shows low character, and that's not supported.
Move on now. John. Thank you.
Well, look, Jimmie, come back, Jimmie. Look, people take pills that aren't prescribed. Doesn't make Jimmie a bad person. Didn't make Rush Limbaugh a bad person when he got hooked on OxyContin and arrested. Jimmie wouldn't tell us what doctor prescribed his Percocet. He wouldn't tell us about Percocet till the very end. I don't know why. I think I do. Look, it's real simple. If you trust Tallahassee to legalize medical marijuana the right way, you vote no. If you don't trust Tallahassee to do the right thing, you vote yes. You listen to this man over here who's standing here full of chemotherapy. You listen to the patients. You do the right thing. Put your people, your neighbors ahead of politics. This is not a political issue. This is a medical issue. This is an issue of compassion. God bless you, and thank you for having me here. And Jimmie T, thank you for having me here.